Let the
I
neighbors
think
know.
there's people 3 streets away who might be coming out of their back door.
It's just funny to me, like the concept of dogs.
I need to bark.
The concept of dogs barking, because it's really to me being like, hey, don't fuck with me, man.
Don't come over here.
This is my yard.
So why are you
drawing attention to it?
Yes, why are you hollering at them? You would be dead right away in Predator.
Hey, if you're curious, I will bite you. Don't come over here. I didn't plan on it.
Cooper,
Fuck you.
Cooper. In the movie, somebody else gets killed first in Predator. But Cooper would have been, because he would have been barking at the Predator.
So this book is God Country. This is a book that I heard about for a long time, in a book that I had been meaning to.
And he just would not shut up about it.
True. A book that I had been meaning to pick up for quite some time. Just recently got it back because, funny enough, I love this book so much that I loaned it out to a few friends where I'm like, you should read this. And specifically, I gave it to people that don't normally read comic books or haven't really read comic books. And I'm like, you should read it.
And they gave it back and said, I'm never going to do it again. Just kidding. I love this book.
But, yeah, and I made it a point to give it to people that traditionally that I know aren't much of a comic book reader. So to give it to them, because it really is such an interesting book, because it's 6 issues, it's self-contained. This is it. There's no sequel, and it doesn't need one at all. It's a beautiful story by itself.
We don't need any fucking prequels.
No, but this is amazingly Donny Cate's first book. This is before he broke into Marvel with the Venom stuff and Thanos Wins and Cosmic Ghost Rider and all that other stuff. Hulk, Thor, all that.
Immortal Hulk is...
It's funny, though, because...
no, sorry. He did the Hulk after that. Sorry.
You definitely feel the seeds that were planted for what he was going to do with Thor in this. It's its own thing. It's completely original, but it definitely has that, like, he's wearing his inspiration on his sleeve.
Well, so like one of the things that you really don't know, but off and on, I had been kind of every once in a while I'd go back to the comic shop or whatever, and I remember reading around the time that you and I started hanging out and talking comics. Obviously, we've been talking comics since we started hanging out, but we've only been doing
for 3 years.
For 3 years last Tuesday. But one of the first books that brought me back into reading comics semi-regularly was Silver Surfer Black by Donny Cate. And I can't remember the artist, but it's fucking fantastic.
Oh, the art's insane.
Right. But that was one of my favorite books because it was such a fucking cool way not only to bring back the Silver Surfer from the end of, I think it was Annihilation was the end of it, was the big crossover event where Silver Surfer died or something.
Yeah, I think so.
And so it was a great way to bring him back, but also to kind of finally and completely just get rid of all that. I used to kill whole worlds. And what did fucking Ron Mars do a couple years later? Brought that back. Boring. Hey, you know what I want to see, Marvel? A Silver Surfer who isn't totally guilty. You know?
I also want to give a shout out
to
one of my favorite comic book YouTube channels, Comic Pop. I can't remember when they did it, but on their show Back Issues, they covered this book a while back. That's the first time I'd heard about it. And that's really where I kind of first heard about Donny Cate and all that. And you and I have talked about on the show that you generally like his work. And it's just funny because
Mark Russell is another guy.
I knew the context of this book,
following.
And I'm sure we've done this show for 3 years. I'm sure I've shared this on the show, but my father passed away. And I had known about the context of this story, like the kind of the basic plot of it. So I was like, it was in my head. I was like, okay, let's see how many pages it'll take before this book's going to fuck me up emotionally. And then I was like, for Dad. First thing I see before I open the first issue, and I'm like, whoa, okay, here we go.
Yeah, and we both have, for different reasons, we both have complicated father-son relationships. You have a son of your own now, and you know my dad is still around, but I've talked to him maybe 3 times in the last 25 years. and I have at whatever point I forgave him for whatever. I wasn't. I had fine childhood and whatever. Wasn't, but he was. Just not there. Mm-hmm. He did teach me how to play guitar. So I knew there's a movie called Big Fish by.
Oh yeah, I definitely thought about that too.
Have you seen it?
Yes.
Okay, so I don't know about
Tim
you,
Burton,
but
right?
Yeah, I don't care how many times I see that movie. The end scene where they're running to the river, that whole thing where he's telling his dad how he dies, which is the point of he finally gets it. He finally gets what his dad is trying to do. Like, you need to tell me a story, man.
And
it's so fucking beautiful. I cry every fucking time when everybody's giving him a high five on the way to the river. And he goes, and they're just so happy to dude. I have complicated relationships with father-son stories too.
I'm so glad we talked about this book when we did, because of the conversations you and I have had off air, and how this book has such a beautiful idea of legacy. And this is gonna be a sobby episode. I can feel it.
I'll be
You're
fine.
tearing up already. I'm gonna start crying.
Oh, I'm not.
Oh, but I will by the end of this. Probably. And it's just a lot of things. I'm so. It's beautiful. It's rare to find something that's so spiritually, on like every possible level a book could speak to me. It's got all of the silly, insane action and mythology that I love, but it's also got this amazingly touching story about a father and son.
Do you know?
And this is, by the way, I feel bad. I feel for this guy. I really do. I feel for Donny, because clearly his dad meant a lot to him, because the father and son dynamic is a running theme he has throughout almost every book. Not every, I don't want to say every book, but almost every book he's done. There's some aspect to a father-son relationship, good or bad.
Well, Silver Surfer Black was a lot about Silver Surfer and Galactus.
And a lot of his Venom run is about Eddie and his kid.
Yeah, Dylan.
So, and Dylan is the current Venom.
Can I say one thing? To me, as far as as an overview, to me the most important message of this book is that it's okay to let go.
Yeah. Well,
more than any other message.
So the book opens in an interesting fashion, because it opens with a Blood Meridian quote, which makes me laugh, because I'm like, of course he's gonna quote fucking Blood Meridian, this magnum opus, which I've been meaning to read. I've heard nothing but great things. But Cormac McCarthy.
Oh yeah.
That's the one with I can't remember the name of the villain, but it's a horrible.
I've read some Cormac McCarthy, but not that one.
You did The Road as well.
I read that one. Interesting.
The
Great
Wrath
book
of God
because
lies
it's not
sleeping.
capitalized anywhere.
Yeah. The Wrath of God lies sleeping. It was it was hid a million years before men were, and only men have the power to wake it. Hell ain't half full. Hear me. Ye carry war of a madman's making into a foreign land. You'll wake more than the dogs. So it's interesting that this book is it's really Texas. It's all about being a Texan, because he's a Texan. Donnie's a Texan. This is where he's from. And I love how much he does it another running. You could see so much of where it all begins is this fucking book. You know what I mean? But like, you see so much of his style of blending contemporary characters with these mythological gods. And what's that like where you have this god from another dimension land in fucking Texas, and his response is, "Get the fuck off my lawn." When the gods say, "We want the sword back," and he goes, "Come and take it." Like, fucking... And you cheer for him because you're like, fuck yeah, fuck him. Finders keepers, bitch. And because you're rooting for him. Because you want him to have... Because this whole idea of this book of him getting his memories back because of this sword is fucking heartbreaking.
Well,
because you know by the end of it, he's going to have to let go. And it's like, ugh.
The first part of the book really shows where the family's at. And
So, his dad
has just lost it. And he's, I think, I don't know about you, but I live with my mom. And so I'm aware of the fact that she's older. She's not getting any younger. I hope that I hope that she is lucid the rest of the way. But there's a theme also of at some point the roles are reversed. There are a lot of things I do that she can't do anymore. Like I cook a lot. You know what I mean? Things like that. And one of the things here, he feels what's the main character's name?
Roy,
and his dad is Emmett, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Now Roy has basically uprooted his family from wherever they were to come back to their home
because his dad has Alzheimer's,
and his mom's dead. So he feels an obligation to his dad to take care of him. Mm-hmm. And his wife and child are kind of,
and it's the classic,
not there yet.
It's the classic story of the burden of, again, the idea that when I have a kid, when my son at some point is probably going to have to take care of me.
Well, that's exactly what I'm talking about with my mom. Like right now, I'm experiencing some of that. Like not a lot, but I can see me being almost 50 and having problems with like my back and shoulders. You know what I mean? Like how much worse is that going to be when I'm older? Mm-hmm. And I'm saying like that connected with me.
Yeah.
Because not that my mom is at all, but because I know at some point that it's closer than it was before, that at some point I'm going to be taking care of her. Mm-hmm. And, the idea of that, that's, are you, how are you going to weather that? Will you be in a financial position to do it? All those things.
I secondhand experienced what my mom went through with her parents. So again, that's another way that this book speaks to me. And you know what? And truthfully, I would love to give my mom this and have her read it because I think she would love it as well. I think everybody would love this fucking book. It's amazing. Is it a perfect book? No. Because there's no such thing as a perfect book. But for me, in my criteria, it is perfect. I would not change anything about this book.
My thing is, I texted you and said every single fucking story that you read, you have to, and you're kind of expected to suspend your disbelief, right? Mm-hmm. Every story. Mm-hmm. And to be really honest, like the more wacky and out there, but also grounded the story can be, with a good writer, in the hands of a guy like Donny Cate, because these kinds of stories, it's not hard to suspend your disbelief. Mm-mm. And even when you kind of notice there's kind of a big glaring plot hole at the end, but I don't care because the book's really good. And yeah, I won't tell you about it until we get there.
No, you won't, because there isn't any plot holes. This book is perfect. Sure.
You just said it wasn't perfect.
It all comes.
You just said it wasn't perfect.
When Roy's daughter
bite your tongue
goes up to play in the house, and his dad wakes up and freaks out, and he says, "Get the fuck out of my house! You hear me? I'll kill you! I'll kill you!" And his daughter sees it.
Probably the first time she's seen him.
Close up of just her eyes in the panel, and it's a very scary, traumatic moment to start your book. But it's a good tone setter of where it is at, where it is at the point where we really don't know how much longer Emmett could be not be in a home because he was out and about.
Roy refuses to put him in a home,
and he got into a fight. He'll get into fights because he can't remember, and he'll pick fights with people. He's a nuisance. The sheriff is telling him no, if this happens again, we're gonna have to either put him in home or put him in jail. We can't do this anymore. And yeah, his after the incident with the kid, Roy's wife is kind of fed up, and he's like, I can't leave. He's my dad. Who's going to take care of him?
Yeah.
And yeah, it's that obligation that comes with the burden of a parent died.
Well, what part of it
Which
is
is,
not
again-
what part of it is not obligation, and what part of it is I don't want to be put in a home. So how could I do that to my dad? Or my dad and my mom took care of me and put a roof over my head. How the fuck can I not do that for them in their last days? But like it or not, you're not going to be prepared for your parent to be that kind of a burden. No matter how much you love them, you will not be able to be around to watch them 24/7 to make sure they don't accidentally get outside. That's when you're going to have to put them in a home, whether you like it or not.
You deserve to have a life.
Yes. Just don't put them in there and
So-
leave them until they die. Go fucking visit them.
His wife takes the kid and drives away, and he says
during a big tornado.
So then a big tornado comes ripping
Not
through
smart.
Texas, and everybody's freaking out because
I've never seen a
the
tornado in
sirens-
Texas. I don't know.
It's in Tornado Alley.
Really?
Like I was saying, there was this storm, and I love that we don't really truly know who's narrating this. It's just been said that this story's
Well,
been
we
passed
do.
down through generations.
at the end.
We do, but we don't.
Whatever.
Wasn't like
Not exactly.
yes, wasn't like none that come before it, and for that it never came out of nowhere, and it brought something along with it. I just love that it's written in clearly like a Texan drawl, and too like, because and I always said the narration and that point of view benefits the story so much because it's what we've been talking about in this very episode previously about. It does so great at world building and mythologicalizing. What's the word?
Mythologizing.
There it is.
I think.
Did you hear my brain
I'm
just
gonna
fucking
guess.
short out?
I heard the fucking wheels clanging together. They're off the fucking rails. You
So
gotta
this tornado is so big and it just destroys Emmett and Roy's family home, and then we
fucking
we
nuclearizes
see
that shit,
as
man.
Roy's wife and daughter were driving back.
Page.
Yeah, there's a huge fucking thing, and then Roy's daughter's just standing, and there's this fucking black demon. This like pitch black demon is showing up, and he's like, ah! He's gonna kill her. And then we turn the next page, and it's a single page splash of Emmett just sticking this big fucking sword into this demon, just obliterating. And Jeff Shaw's art, I cannot say, I can't express enough how much Jeff Shaw's art perfectly and I know I say that a lot, but man, these two what an amazing partnership Jeff Shaw and Donny Cates on this book. Like the art is fucking incredible in this book, just unbelievable. And like this page specifically, like that, I love it. So yeah, he destroys it, and then Emmett. He said Roy wasn't much of a fighter. But Roy's father, hell, you ask anyone in the great state of Texas and they'll tell you all the same damn thing. Emmett Quinlan was a god. I fucking love it. You know what I mean? Like, I just love this, again, this, like, American myth. You know what I mean? This, like, Southern myth to it. This Texan story. I don't know. The sword's name, because of course it had a name. Again, I love that. Valaflax. So, how do you feel about the sword? Valaflax. Because it taught Valifax. No, whatever. I'll pronounce however the fuck I want, Tyler. All right.
Look, I mean,
so how do you feel? No, but how do you feel about the sword? Because the sword.
well, you
as
have
we
to
find
make
out
a sword that's the sword of all swords. Like
god
literally
of
every
blades.
fucking sword that ever existed, has existed, will exist. Okay.
I love that shit. I love it
Eh.
because it does have a narrative purpose later in the story. Like I don't know. Again, you might not be into that, but I love it. This book is perfect. You can't tell me.
It's not perfect.
It's not.
No. You just said that a while ago.
I know it's not perfect.
Are you sure?
But to me it
it
is.
fucking sounds like you think it is.
So it came through that
Yeah,
storm
all
and
right.
chasing that demon. So yeah, Emmett claims the sword, and then did you say Grandpa? And then he starts to, that's when we get whenever he's holding Valifax, he can remember his family. And again, I figured you would appreciate this because this is very Kirby. The chain breaking, like that, very much feels New Godsy, doesn't it?
Mm.
All right. So the first issue ends. I love the narration into this. So, and it began to hear with a storm an old man, his family, a demon, an ancient, indestructible, enchanted 12-foot sword, and the god who wanted it back. And it's just a one-page shot of this big god. I don't know. Again, I've always loved that kind of stuff. I like the first page is just a side thing of Emmett just fucking around with the sword. And that's when he continues to explain that, like, I can remember. This part, this is what I love. Even if there's a moment of levity, it's immediately followed by a heartbreaking moment. Because you have a moment where it's Janie, ain't it? Yes. Emmett, you remember my name. And then it cuts back to his wife being pregnant. And his daughter's got to be like, 5, 6 years old? So that implies that he's been dealing with this for like 5 years. That's fucking tragic, man. It's like you get a moment of levity, and then the next shot is that one page of like Roy describing her to his dad in the hospital. So like it's been going on for a while. And that was the first time I was like, whew, that's rough. That's heavy shit. And the best part too is like we keep having these conversations, and Emmett says I'm not going anywhere, and he uses the sword to recreate his home. So the sword helped him just rebuild the whole home. Does that necessarily make sense? Probably not. Don't care. Still love the book. So then, kaboosh! We get the God of War showing up on Emmett's doorstep. And this is where like the big concept of the book is like these gods just keep showing up, and Emmett keeps fighting him because he's like, I will fight as long as I can to have these. So that, like, also I want to point out this dude.
Well, that's not really what happens though. Is gods keep showing up and he keeps fighting them? No, Adam shows
that's
up.
The concept I know, but I want to pull up his name.
Well, that's Adam. It's Atum. Attum.
No, it's Aristus.
Okay, well, Adam is the name of the father.
Other guy, his dad, yes, but Aristus is probably one of the best characters in this.
What?
He's honorable. He doesn't want to fight him. He says several times.
Paper mache copycat.
Are you fucking kidding me?
Come on. He's like every other. He's like every Thor, Hercules / whatever.
He's Roy.
He's the son of a god. Okay, fine.
He's Roy because both their dads' ego got them there.
But he's not the best character.
But Emmett was man enough to realize his own ways.
Best character in the book.
I would argue he is.
No, he's not.
Because he's a G.
Yeah.
Why not? Tell me why not. Because multiple
I already
times
told you.
He shows up. He says, Emmett, we need to talk. I'm not going to harm you. Let's just have a chat. This is a beautiful realm, Emmett Quinlan. What do you and your people call this? Texas. I just love that shit. But I love this part because we get the explanation of Halifax where it's like, it's not just a sword. It's the sword. It's the god of blades. So essentially what happens is they have a discussion, and then while this is happening, Emmett goes to his wife's grave where he remembers where it is, digs it up, and then his expression on the one panel, he's got this really happy look of like he sees the tombstone, he remembers. And then in that memory, it's him and his wife with the same expression on his face, and they're holding each other at they're at a club or at a bar anyway, dancing. And it's like, fucking Christ, man, why does this book keep punishing me? As I keep thinking. Because it's sad, because then he has that conversation when he says, if I give you the sword back, are there gods that could maybe give me my memories back and fix my Alzheimer's? And Aristus goes, I don't know what that is. We don't have that where I live, so we wouldn't know how to deal with it. Like, I can't. You'll lose your memories without a sword. I can't help you. And then in that moment again where it's sad, where he's like, I remembered my wife, and then I remembered she died. And that wasn't a great memory, but it was mine, damn it, and I want my memories back. And it's like, at the heart of it, that's the saddest thing about this disease. It's the saddest thing about this story. It's like, that is the cruelest thing, to just steal someone's identity. And it's fucking sad, man. Their identity, they lose everything. They can't remember who they are. They can't remember. It's fucking sad. And it's scary. And you talk about legacy, that scares me, because I think about that maybe, with my mom, and if I have that with, that happens to me with Lincoln, or it happens, you know what I mean? Like,
I don't have any kids, dude. How do you think I feel? I'm like twice as old as you are. I might never have kids. What the fuck am I leaving? Nothing. I'm just saying, man, you want to talk about legacy, I'm definitely hearing about it. I'm thinking about it.
Yeah.
And I got nothing.
So anyway, I mean, what do I do? I mean, because again, that's the thing. This book is so damn good. It makes you existential about this shit. So then he's like, okay, well, I have a message for my father, because he's like, Emmett's like, I'm not giving up the sword, and that's just the thing. I want my memories, and I'm keeping them, and I'm keeping the sword. So then Arceus goes back to his father Adam, and that's where he says, he has a message for you, and he says, what? And he says, come and take it. And see, and this is the thing, we don't get it. We get it here, where there's the parallels between Emmett and Adam. Atum is the fact that, again, the things that they dumped on their kids, and that's what every parent deals with, is the fact that no matter how you, human beings, one way or another, whether it's intentional or not, we hurt each other, and we cause trauma, and it happens. It's a part of life, right? But in this case, a lot of the trauma would have been fixed for Arceus and Roy if their fathers would have just listened to them and had real conversations. Because even when Emmett gets the sword back, he still has conversations with Roy, and Roy's upset with him, expressing his emotion to his father, and his dad goes, your mom hugged you too much. Basically saying, stop being a pussy.
You don't think every time I've tried to have a decent conversation with my father that I've gotten back, well, the man fucking refuses to have a real conversation with me.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't want to say how do you think that makes me feel, but honestly, like I am desperately wanting to speak to him and talk to him about what my childhood was like and what he failed to do, and he fucking refused. I'll never get that closure. You know? I mean,
mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's one of the big things in this whole issue.
No matter what you want, people are not going to necessarily give it to you, whether you think they owe it to you or not.
Yeah, this part of the story.
So get used to disappointment is kind of what... No, I'm serious, dude. To me, the best message about this book is get used to disappointment, and letting go is okay.
Yeah.
You have to at some point, or you're just going to be grief-ridden the rest of your fucking life. Is that what you want? I wasted 20 years of my life because my dad divorced my mom. No, I liked drinking and getting fucked up. But I had a great fucking reason to lay at the steps of any fucking person who tried to help me, didn't I? Well, my dad left my mom, you know?
Yeah.
But what was it really? And I mean, I've gotten over that part, but I also want to tell Dad, like, also want to tell my dad, hey, I got sober, no thanks to you.
Yeah.
On my own.
So this book, a lot of it is Emmett playing with his daughter, his granddaughter. And then there's a discussion between Janie and Roy about how Roy feels guilty because he prayed for something to happen, and the tornado happened and the sword happened. And she's like, there's no way that you could have known that had happened.
Well, it's human nature to blame yourself for everything.
Well, you really believe that after the fucking God just landed in our backyard and this sword showed up?
How many times have we all like had those moments where you're like, if only I hadn't thought that or whatever? Like, I think we've all had that moment at least once in our life.
But
when you thought something bad about something and then or somebody and then something, you know, not maybe what you thought, but something happens to that person and you feel bad. It's not that you caused it.
Mm-hmm.
There's no possible way you caused it. But the fact that you happen to be thinking something similar or whatever, you know, or bad about that person, whatever.
Yeah. But yeah, what I love about that scene is it's a great illustration of what caused a lot of friction in that relationship of just being like, I'm just trying to have a fucking conversation with you, and you can't, like, you just all this like he even says, can we just talk for a minute of all this crazy shit that's happened? The tornado, the demon, the sword, the gods, like and just have a conversation. He goes, your mom hugs you too much? Like, what the fuck? And then his dad to finally have that moment of like talking about his mom and like the memories and stuff, and it's like it's a societal problem, I think, and I talk about it a lot. I think about this a lot, and I've had conversations about that a lot. And for a long time, society has created this asinine notion that men shouldn't experience or feel or have all emotion, and we should be these guarded, stoic guys, and it's silly because you're just walling people off. And when you don't create an environment to have someone fully express themselves, you get friction in a relationship. And that's the problem with Roy and Emmett, where it's like all this time, just talk to me. But so then Roy gets bit by this like demon, and then this lit up, and then we see, this horde of zombies show up, and they have their thing, and they fight, and
there's a big to-do.
There's a big to-do because the kid gets kidnapped and taken to the hell. So then Emmett goes to hell while Roy and Janie try and fight off the zombies. Valifax finally shows why he's the god of blades in this fight, where he takes all of the knives out of the...
That part's pretty fucking good.
I fucking love that. When he takes all the
He took
knives.
all the stuff, but then he also took the window. He also took the windmill.
Oh, yeah, he ripped the blades off.
And turned it. Didn't he turn them into blades?
Yeah.
Because they were kind of blade shaped.
Yeah.
Kind of.
But you know what?
That part was fucking cool.
I love that. That's
it. That's all I liked.
That's, again, leading into this being a comic book.
That's it.
Having these real human moments and conversations, but also, again, leaning into the absurdity of like, okay, that's fucking cool. We're just going to take the knives out of these drawers and stab all these.
You will hand it to him. Like, there's no shortage of genre crossing here. Or mashing. Yeah. And it's done pretty well. Mm-hmm. So he goes to hell.
So Emmett goes to hell the next issue, and he deals with everything. And I love how this is the interpretation is hell is Texas, but
the hell that he's in is underneath the realm called Texas, and there's countless. They talk about like
it's based
just
on where
like
you live.
everything. Yeah.
I love that
versions.
idea, like that cool idea. That's a cool concept. So he's walking around and he sees the wolf. And he's talking to Valifax, and they're getting ready to go fight the god of death. Janie and Roy are still holding off the zombies. Mm-hmm. He kicks down to the door where the god of death is, and the sword is like, be aware of him, he's a deceiver. And then he brings out Emmett's wife. Yeah. And she looks like the younger version of her that we see. I don't think we ever actually see an older... because it's always the only time we ever see her, it's Emmett's ideal, his memories of her, his idolization of her. So it's always when they were young, which is kind of sweet and cute. So he sees her and she's like, do you remember me? And he's like, and Valifax is screaming at him, don't drop me. If you set me down, this all goes awry. And so, yeah, he's just sitting there, and he's like, Elizabeth, where are we? What's happening? And she's like, it's okay. So eventually, what essentially is happening is like this, whatever she is supposed to be, this, her spirit or whatever, is trying to pretty much like coax him to like give up and let the god of death take him. But eventually Valifax shows up and fights the god of death. And claims he's unworthy because he's not using death properly, and banishes him, uses his powers as the god of blades, and then Elizabeth turns back into ash and disappears. And of course, and he's like, you took her, and then this other guy. I love how he looks, his design. He looks very impish, the god of death. So he's like, oh no, please have mercy. And then Roy just beats the shit out of him. Takes the kid, takes Valifax, goes back home. And so then Aristus has to show up now because Atum is like, I'm going to give you this chest with this, again doing like the Thor shit. We're like, here's this magical weapon to fight this other magical weapon, and just playing to the fantasy of it. And it kind of goes in the description of how Valifax was forged. It was created by Atum, and how Tomb was this great militant leader for what they wanted, but eventually their realm turned to shit because he's a greedy bastard. Like he's just one of those guys that's just obsessed with conquering, and
well, he won't let go.
He won't let go. He's like, I want my fucking sword back, because the sword was like, I'm tired of killing all these people.
He's used every piece of energy that he has to control this one fucking tiny fucking corner of a dead universe. And
because of his own pride and his own ego.
Hatred and pride and I won't go and whatever. Which is a different way of, like when somebody's dying and they're holding on to say goodbye one last time or whatever.
Or it's
a different thing. But when you're talking about somebody holding on for hate, just go already, man.
Yeah.
And that's basically what Aristus is saying about his own dad.
And then Emmett and Aristus have a really cool fight where they both have a really cool image where like they're jumping with the weapons, because Aristus has this big hammer that's supposed to help him fight the sword. He calls, and the whole time he's fighting Emmett, he's like, just end this, please, end this. Like, he will not stop. I don't think you understand. Even if you win, he's going to come after you. Like, it's never going to end. But Emmett's fighting and persists because, again, you can call, and then Emmett emerges with the hammer and the sword after they have like a big explosion and everything, and Emmett is saying, I'll kill you, much like he is at the beginning of the story, and then he sees his granddaughter again and realizes, okay, I am taking this. This really is never gonna stop. So his next solution is, I'm gonna go fight a Tomb and kill him, so then I can still have the sword. And again, I understand his motivations, but it still is selfish, because who's to say that somebody else is going to come for that sword? So clearly somebody, like, you know what I mean? But, so yeah, that's what he's like, I'm going to do this. Even Roy is like, don't do this. Like, just give up the fucking sword. I understand. It's like, I think Roy is at a point of like, it's great that you have these memories back and I'm happy for you, but you've got, like the theme of the book, you have to let go of this. There's no way for us to, like, what about us? What about the collateral damage if these gods keep tearing up the fucking planet? You know what I mean? Like, tearing up our house, let alone the rest of the world. You know what I mean? So, yeah, the solution is still to go to the fucking dying dimension that a Tomb is in.
The kingdom of always.
The kingdom of always. So, they have this really cool fight. And it basically leads down to a Tomb impales Emmett in the fight, and he falls down, and Halifax so the reason Aristus couldn't go back with Emmett is there was a wall.
He's barred.
That was blocking the portal, and the portal opened, because he's like, something has happened. Someone has the sword, whether it be a Tomb or Roy, Emmett, and that's where he's like, Roy, you should probably come with me because he's probably dead. It's probably not going to end well for either of them. So anyway, Roy shows up with Aristus, and Roy finds his dad laying there with a sword. And this is the part where I broke down and cried, and I knew it was coming. And when I flipped the page, Ashley upstairs was like, "Are you all right?" Because I just went, "Son of a bitch!" It could, like, out loud, because it was just like instant. But Emmett is being held by Roy, and he said, it would be nice to think of like that Roy would show up and save Emmett and save his dad. But the truth is, the damage done had left Emmett too weak to fight, and he couldn't even speak. And he's like, Dad, what are you what are you trying to say? And he said, but that was okay, because in that moment, Emmett finally did let go. And when he did, he gave his son everything. And it's just all these memories of Roy, of getting married, when he's a baby, when he's going to school, when he's like, every single thought, every single thing that he wanted to say or couldn't say was in that moment. And it's like such a beautiful moment. And it's like, I didn't get that, and reading it and having it in this context kind of gave me a new perspective on it. You know what I mean? Where I'm trying to think of how to phrase it, because it's in my head of how I want to describe it. I want to describe it of like, I like to think this is what would have happened with my dad. Not literally. But I'd like to think that would happen. And I've just been thinking about that a lot. And thinking about the process of grief and how you're never truly through it. And you're never truly over it. And it changes you for the rest of your life. And it's just something you live with. But this did help, I think. In seeing this portrayal of someone letting go like that.
Well, one thing is
powerful shit,
understanding that as humans, we perceive time in a linear way.
Right.
If you perceive time in a circular way, we're always alive. We're always here in some form or fashion.
Yeah.
Every moment is happening every time, over and over again.
Birth, death, constantly.
Right. But as humans, since we see linear, death is so hard for us to accept as a necessary part of life.
Yeah.
Imagine if we were immortal. Yeah. After about 100 years and you kind of learn everything, like what then?
You'd probably really...
At some point you get bored, right?
You'd be annoyed, you'd be bored.
So, Secret Wars 2 back in the 80s with Marvel was the Beyonder coming to Earth to understand what it meant to be human. And what he was trying to understand, what he ultimately figured out is what he had to do to understand to be human was to be able to die. Was to have an end to his life.
A
legacy.
Yeah.
What are you going to do at the end? What happens afterwards?
Yeah.
Do we even go anywhere, or is it just black?
Yeah.
I don't know. But I do know that that's definitely been on my mind, my own mortality, my own legacy. And what the fuck, am I even leaving anything behind? And will I even fucking know that I died?
So the book ends with Roy taking Valifax. In the background, this is happening.
Flinging it away like a big old pizza pie.
Parallels, a tomb kills his oldest son, his first son, while his whole world dies because of his own greed. So Roy takes Valifax and puts his dad's corpse into a star and teleports home and leaves the sword. And they said my favorite part of that is like, well, the book was never really about a sword. But the ending part hit me hard and made me like, this is what what you and I were talking about with legacy and shit like that. And where this book hits the hardest is the end. So the point is we keep telling it because he says, where does it go? And so Roy told his story to his daughter, in part she didn't know anyway, and Grandma D told her kids that story. So it's like, okay, it's a generational thing. But the thing is, like, the whole point of this is to say we keep telling this story.
It's probably Roy's great grandkids.
And that if we live our lives the way Emmett did, if we find all the folks who love us and we fight like hell to hang on to them and love them back the best we can, that people will always remember us. And none of us are ever truly gone. We'll just be stories. And I fucking love that sentiment. It's beautiful. Made me cry.
I'll always tell stories about you.
All right, Tyler. All right.
No,
we're not doing.
Yeah, because we don't have time.
We're getting out of here.
Off panel, off topic with Jake and Tyler.